Welcome, welcome all to DETV, Every Woman. We're grateful that you're with us this evening. And I'm a guest host on behalf of Lieutenant Governor Bethany Hall Long and the Behavioral Health Consortium. We are so honored to be a part of tonight's program. We have a very special guest for us this evening. Stacey Stewart, who is the CEO of Mothers Against Drunk Driving, or MAD. I'm sure you've all heard of MAD. I'd like to tell you a little bit about Stacey and then bring her on. Stacey joined MAD in January of 2023 and has a long history of tackling critical issues impacting women, impacting our families, and vulnerable communities nationwide. Now, prior to her role as MAD CEO, Stacey was CEO at the March of Dimes, the United Way of America, and the Fannie Mae Foundation. Thank you, Stacey, for joining us this evening. We're excited to have a conversation with you.
Thank you. It's so great to be with you as well.
We're excited, Stacey. Now, when you took over as CEO of MAD, it's now nearly been about 2 years, and you immediately jumped in and you began evaluating critical issues relating to drinking and impaired driving. Tell us more about that work you're leading and the impact that you're hoping to share with us here in Delaware.
Well, again, thanks for having me, and I wish I were there with you all in person. You guys look like you're having a lot of fun. And you're right. At MAD, we are the leading organization really addressing the issue of impaired driving. And what a lot of people don't really remember is the fact that we still do have a public health crisis of impaired driving on our roads. That's true all around the country. It's true in Delaware. In fact, one of the things that we've seen in the past few years, especially from 2019 to 2022, during the years of COVID, across the country, we saw a 33% increase in the number of drunk driving fatalities. In Delaware, that number was even more. And so we know that we have a crisis on our hands. At MAD, what we're trying to do is to make sure, first of all, that we're building awareness, reminding people that even though MAD is almost 45 years old, and a lot of people know MAD from when they were of a certain age, and they remember the things that MAD did to raise awareness around not drinking and driving, we still have to remind people that this is still a crisis and that there is something that we can do about it. In fact, it's a 100% preventable crime. The second thing we're doing is really educating young people, especially, about the dangers of underage drinking. So making sure that young people who if they start drinking earlier in life, are at a significantly higher risk of becoming an impaired driver down the road, making sure they understand the dangers of underage drinking and substance use. I want to make sure it's really clear that MAD today, our focus is not just around alcohol-related impairment, but it's around alcohol and substance impaired driving as well. And the last thing we do, and a lot of people don't know this, is that we serve a lot of victims of impaired driving crashes. Every year, based on the last data, about over 13,000 people were killed in alcohol-related crashes in the country. And again, that number has been increasing around the country through COVID for a number of reasons I'm sure we'll talk about. But those are some of the things that we do at MAD to make sure that we are finally bringing impaired driving to an end.
And so, Stacey, MAD is broader from a substance use perspective. As you think about what's happening from a policy perspective, and we're seeing legalization of marijuana becoming more prominent, and you think of our youth in particular, is MAD also addressing that concerned about all substances, not just alcohol?
Yes, absolutely. And we have to do that. There was just a recent study that came out that said among young people, actually alcohol use is on the decline. But in some ways it's being replaced by other things like substances, like addiction to phones, unfortunately. And if you've got teenagers like we do, we all know what that looks like and how our kids can be glued to phones. But substance use, especially with the legalization and even more so the commercialization of cannabis, is a growing concern. And one of the things that we're seeing in emergency rooms all around the country is the presence of one or more substances. Alcohol is a substance, but what we're seeing is this trend around polyuse, where it's alcohol and other substances leading to impaired driving crashes. So at MAD, we're trying to address all of these things because we have to stay focused on the fact that, the world is changing, and access to substances that can lead to impairment are becoming a greater issue, especially as they relate to driving on our roads and being safe on our roads.
And that's why we're so grateful, Stacey, that you could join us today. I mean, MAD has such a familiar name, but now the expansion, as the environment has changed over the years since MAD began their fabulous advocacy work. At the Behavioral Health Consortium, as you know, we are very focused on overall behavioral health. So through the work that you're doing and leading, how do you believe that mental and behavioral health issues contribute to impaired driving, and what can be done to actually address that connection?
Well, I think, all of the research tells us that there is a strong connection between the issues of mental health, even stress, all kinds of mental health conditions, anxiety and depression, alcohol and substance use, and then impaired driving. There's a strong connection around all of those things. And I think one of the things that we have seen that has been such a disturbing trend, and I want to again go back to the COVID period, especially 2019 to 2022, where everywhere around the world, and even more so in the US, we saw a substantial increase in anxiety and depressive disorders. So it should be no surprise then that in a period, again, 2019 to 2022, when there was less driving going on the roads, we were all in lockdown, we actually had more fatalities, more drunk driving and impaired driving fatalities on our roads. And so it's clear to us at MAD that there is a strong correlation between the issues around mental health, the failures in our system to address this as a critical public health crisis, and how that is playing out in terms of this really leading to not only, I know, the issue of overdoses that you all have been dealing with in Delaware, and as have many other states around the country, and addressing in a really substantial and effective ways, but also how people decide because of their impaired judgment, because of substance use and alcohol use, because of maybe the lack of care that they are not able to access if they're experiencing those issues, they then have to make the unfortunate decision to get behind the wheel and drive. And that's what's leading to so much of the fatalities that we're seeing on our roads, the injuries that we're seeing on the roads. So there's no doubt at MAD that we've changed our whole perspective on what this job really looks like, what this work really looks like around ending impaired driving, and how we embrace those partners that are involved in behavioral health, like the BHC, and mental health, and how do we close those gaps so that everybody that seeks care can receive the care they need in the time that they need it.
So, Stacey, what is your why that brought you to MAD? When I think about your fabulous career and the tremendous advocacy that you have provided throughout your career, what at this time, drove you to join MAD 2 years ago? What is your why?
Yeah. So, MAD is a historic organization and has an amazing legacy. All the things that we know and we sort of take for granted today, like the fact that we have .08 as a federal law to determine the legal limit for alcohol use, and per se laws around alcohol and impaired driving. The fact that we have 21 as a minimum drinking age in this country. The fact that we have stronger seatbelt laws. All of those things are due to MAD and our leadership. MAD led the way on many of those efforts. And so it's really, really important to me not only to look at the past of what MAD has done, and one of the reasons I came to the organization is because I think we can, in some ways, celebrate the fact that from the beginning of MAD's time in the early 80s, we've seen a 50% decline in impaired driving fatalities on the roads, but we haven't gotten all the way there. That's only half the way. Mm-hmm. And we can't afford to let our foot off the gas at this point in terms of where we have to go to actually keep our roads safer, to keep people safer. And I think in this time, especially in this maybe not totally post-COVID world, but after the post-COVID crisis world, I just read that term today. We have to continue to stay focused on sort of the mess that the pandemic left all of us. That many people that experienced the pandemic, and we all did, are still dealing with the effects of it. We're still dealing with the effects of having had our mental health challenge, our emotional health. We're still needing to access many more resources. And we still, to the extent that we're still seeing so many more deaths on the road, I felt it was really important to me to come to an organization that was truly committed to deal with it. You know, I've always worked in organizations that are around doing good in the world. I started my career, a funny story, on Wall Street, but I didn't want to work in corporate finance. I wanted to work in something called public finance, which was raising money for roads and bridges and hospitals and schools. All my life and all my career, whether it's in the for-profit sector or the nonprofit sector, it's all been around doing good in the world. And MAD was yet another opportunity. When the board approached me, I just took it as, you know, an opportunity that I couldn't pass up. And I've been thrilled to join this organization that has had so much impact, and there's so much more we can do, not only within the organization, but with our partners as well, at a state level, local level, and a federal level.
And we're thrilled that you did join and the tremendous focus that you have. Tonight, we also want to look at what innovation is out there. And as I was doing my research, I was very intrigued about a new initiative that you launched early this year titled MAD Sports. And that data, of course, shows that sports can have an incredibly positive impact, especially on young people's behavioral and their mental health, especially girls. So as MAD CEO, what are you hoping to accomplish? Tell us a little more about the MAD Sports effort, and what is your dream for the accomplishments with this new effort? And how can we here in Delaware, especially with the Behavioral Health Consortium, be a partner with you in this effort?
Oh, we would love to have you guys as a partner. That would be awesome. You know, as I mentioned earlier, I mean, I turned 60 this year, so MAD was always a big part of my life growing up. But when I go and talk to 20-year-olds, even 30-year-olds, and I tell them I'm the CEO of MAD, some people will say, well, what is that? What is MAD? So one of the things that we're working hard on is bringing MAD back into relevance, bringing ending impaired driving back into relevance, more importantly. With MAD, though, in our leadership, we've got to create more visibility and awareness. And I have a fondness for sports. I have always been involved in sports, and I know that sports figures and sports celebrities and sports individuals that are involved in sports in any way can be powerful role models. They can have a powerful voice. They have amazing platforms to spread a message about how people can deal with issues around mental health, how people can deal with the issues of making the right decision to not get behind the wheel if they've gone out or been with friends or gone to a sporting event even and need to get home safely. So we decided to launch MAD Sports with the University of Arizona women's basketball team. Since then, we've had Heisman Trophy winners and coaches and all professional leagues come on board to just lend their voice to the cause. I mean, that's really it. You know, if you can imagine, and if any of you have seen what Simone Biles has been talking about in her documentary, and just really over the past few years about her own challenges around mental health, that's been a very powerful thing to change maybe the stigma that exists around people that may have mental health issues and need to seek help. It's really important to see people use their platforms in that way. And so really MAD Sports is just a way of engaging the whole sports community to raise those voices and elevate the importance and the awareness of ending impaired driving. There's one other thing I just want to mention too, which I think is truly innovative that MAD is leading on, and that is something that we were able to, legislation we were able to get passed in 2021 in the bipartisan infrastructure bill. It is new technology, anti-drunk driving technology. It is now the law. It is now mandated. We are in the process of rulemaking. What this is if you're familiar with ignition interlock devices that get installed in your car when you've been convicted of a DUI, this is very different. This is passive technology that would still allow you to detect alcohol if you're impaired or above the legal limit and not operate the car. And so one of the biggest initiatives that we're working on, in addition to Mad Sports, is really working with the auto companies and federal regulators to make sure that we can get this anti-drunk driving technology installed in cars. The estimates are that if once we get this technology installed in cars, it will reduce drunk driving fatalities by 10 or 11,000 individuals per year. And when 13,000 people are dying every year, that's a very substantial improvement upon where we are today. So that's one of the big things we're working on at MAD, and excited about the future, what that will bring.
So you're looking for a variety of tools in the toolbox, it sounds like, that really are intended to protect and support the initiative. We really do appreciate everything. And I'm not sure if you can see our studio audience, because I think you can just probably see me, but we got a lot of...
I caught a little glimpse. I saw the ladies there. Hi, everybody.
Because we have a lot of wonderful women in the audience. How many of you are engaged in sports or were as children and youth? Let clap, yeah?
Very good.
Because I saw so many nods when you were talking, from an aha, like when you were talking about the value of sports and, just being active in your community. Now that we do know that schools across our country have started, is there any initiatives because I remember, that the schools were prominent when MAD started to really promote that message, and especially as we start learning how to drive in our teen years. Are there any great initiatives that you have in mind that are really focused now that we're at the start of another school year?
Yeah, no, this is such a great time to be talking about this. We have a lot of prevention programming that is very effective in reaching young people. We have a Power of Me program that reaches very young kids early in life, to help them understand about the dangers of underage drinking and substance use. But maybe for the folks and the ladies in the room and many others, we also have another program called the Power of Parents program, which is an evidence-based program. It was just recently reviewed by a professor from Penn State. It's now been documented to actually lead to outcomes that will improve underage drinking and substance use, making sure that kids don't make the decision to get behind a wheel. Unfortunately, if they have been drinking underage or using substances. Power Parents is on our website at mad.org. It's a very effective program. What it does is it helps give parents those tools. These issues of talking to your children around, the issues of not drinking or not using substances, and why it's best to make those decisions not to do those things, why it's best to hold off on those decisions as long as you can. Are difficult conversations for parents. I mean, as a parent myself, I know how hard those things are. But these are what we offer at MAD through Power Parents, are some tools that allow parents to understand your parenting style, understand the best ways to reach your child, so that you can have a really open, honest, productive conversation that will keep your kids safe. And that's what we all want as parents. So we have a lot of resources, again, at mad.org. Power of Parents is one of them, but we encourage everyone, if you're looking for those kinds of resources, just to go to our website.
Stacey, you've been phenomenal. Thank you for taking the time out of, I'm sure, your extremely busy schedule and joining us this evening. Let's give Stacey a round of applause. Yes. And we'll be right back, everybody.
Thank you so much. And if I could just say one thing, I want to thank the BHC. I want to thank Lieutenant Governor Bethany Hall Long for amazing leadership. She not only is she Lieutenant Governor, she's a nurse. She knows health policy. She understands these issues as well as anyone. And you're very, very fortunate in Delaware to have her leadership, where she can bring all the community partners together to address these really, really critical issues that, frankly, every state in the country is dealing with. So you don't have to feel alone in this, but you're very fortunate to have someone who understands the issues well and knows how to solve them. So thank you for having me. It's been really terrific to be with you.
Thank you, Stacey. We'll be in touch. We want to partner with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
We'll be right back, everyone.
Hey there, I just wanted to shout you out and say, guess what? Today is a brand new day and you're going to kick its butt.
Hey girlfriend, I just want to tell you that the world is yours. You can accomplish anything that you want to do. Make sure that you make this week your best week.
Welcome back, everyone, to DETV, Every Woman. We have a great group of women friends of mine who join me here on the cozy couch. We're going to be connecting the dots. We're going to be exploring solutions for women to support mental health and combat addiction for stronger, healthier communities. Thank you all for being here. On behalf also of the Behavioral Health Consortium and our Lieutenant Governor, Bethany Hall Long, I'm now going to introduce you to these fabulous women. First up is Annie Sleece. And Annie is co-founder and CEO of the National Mental Health Literacy Collaboration. And you'll get to know more about that when we talk it through. But Annie, I know, Annie, you've had such a great career thus far focused on behavioral health. So thank you for joining us all this evening. Next on my list of fabulous women is Dr. Terry Lawler, and she also represents many organizations, but I asked her to join us here tonight as the founding member of Pathways to Resilience. Isn't that fabulous? Just let that sit with you for a little bit, right? Pathways to Resilience. But also, Terry does fabulous work at the Department of Education here in Delaware. So she's the one, as a school psychologist, that focuses on that K through 12 population. And we know how incredibly important that is. And next is Sierra Hall Hipkins, another great lady friend of mine, representing Network Connect and doing fabulous work, not only here in the city of Wilmington, but also down in Dover, and maybe you're even statewide. Yeah, I thought you were. And just really focused on communities that have been made marginalized, right? We know that when communities have been made marginalized through a lot of trauma, through a lot of social injustice, like how do we bring them back? How do we bring them back? How do we address that? And Sierra is doing that at all ages, for all ages. So great, Sierra. I want to learn more about what you've been up to. And last but not least, my good friend Jessica Estook. And Jessica is at the University of Delaware. So think about what we just heard also from Stacey, and especially when our freshmen get let loose for the first time in their lives, right? What a tremendous milestone, Jessica. But also, we know such a scary time, right? And we know that the brain, the executive function, is not fully developed until the age of 25. And that can be a scary thing too, from an impulse. So what Jessica's great work, she's interim assistant director of the collegiate recovery programs at UD. I've had the great honor of spending time with Jessica, and how do we build that community and nourish that community, and very thankful for your work. So I'm going to ask all of you to dive in here and think about this. Tell us from your own lens, through your I love lived experience, right? We all have it, right? That's something we all have in common. And I love the professional lived experience too. But through your lens, the importance of sustaining mental wellness. And think about, what does that mean for individuals of all ages, right? We never stop supporting our own mental wellness, families, and how that relates to healthy communities. Annie, you want to dive in first? Because I
Sure.
think your collaborative is kind of focusing on that.
Right. So we talk about mental health literacy. That's what we're focused on. And most people don't even know what that is. But to answer your question, I think to think about your wellness needs to include understanding what that means, right? And when we're talking about mental health, so often we hear mental health, but people jump to mental illness, right? Those
So
aren't
people
the
don't
same.
even know what mental health means.
No, they don't. And we need to remember that mental health is dynamic. It's not one thing. And it's not like wellness or illness. It's not just this, range of, binary of wellness and illness. It's like this dynamic thing that can be affected by so many factors. So when I think about how do I stay well and how do I encourage my family and my friends and my colleagues, it's about understanding what I need. And it's about realizing that that's going to change all the time, depending on what else is going on. So mental health literacy, I think, is the key. And it really is something most people don't even know what it is. But I don't want to take everybody else's time. So let me let everybody else talk.
But we're going to come back to you on that a little bit, because I know that was that was your why to create this collaborative.
Right.
Because if we don't even know what it is, how do we start talking it? How do we start learning it? How do we start communicating about that from a mental health literacy? Terry.
So Annie said something I think is really important, and that's that our mental health can be fluid, okay? Mm. And so the idea, first of all, the first thing that came to mind is our fluidity is dependent upon who's around us, right?
That's right.
And as women, I mean, we are so good at connecting, pulling people in, getting the support that we need, right?
Right. Women, like women.
And so there's this great Malcolm X quote that I love. It says that when I is replaced with we, even illness becomes wellness. Yeah. Our wellness is connected to our community. It's connected to the other people that we're in relationship with. And so when I think about your question, I'm reminded first to focus on what it means for me to be well, but also recognizing that my wellness makes a path for the people around me to be well too.
So Terry, can I interrupt you there? Just right there, because you brought up women. Is that easy for women to do?
I think the challenge is that we are accustomed to putting other people's needs first.
Women, how many of you out there?
Yeah.
Right? So it's, I'm well if my kids are well. I'm well if my parents are well. I mean, there's so many other things connected to our wellness. But I heard something else recently that I love, and it says that when women lead, we run uphill. And so when we're running uphill, we're bringing all these other people with us. And so I have to, even if it's hard, focus on me first, put my mask on first, so then I can help everybody else put their mask on.
That's a great analogy. That they even explain that to you when you're flying.
That's right.
Even if you got a little baby next to you, right? Your instinct would be, no, you take it, and they explain that. So that's a good lesson just in life.
Yep. Yeah. And we tell our educators, you can't pour from an empty well. And so you've got to continue to replenish and fill yourself up so that you can pour into other people.
So Jessica, how does that relate to your work at the UD too, through that lens about wellness? Because I know, you are the safe haven when everything goes wrong, right? And so tell me more about that and promoting that wellness too.
Absolutely. So our collegiate recovery program is part of student wellness and health promotion.
So it's part of a bigger wellness.
It is, which is part of then the well-being units on campus. So we have that recognition that wellness touches all aspects of our life, right? Coming at it from a holistic perspective. But what I'm hearing really reflects that socio-ecological model where we're looking at ourselves, and then we're looking at our family as the next circle, and then our community. And then that can lead to larger society and policy, but it's also bi-directional. So when we take care of ourselves, we can make a well community, but also when our community is well, we can be better.
Yeah. That's excellent segue to my friend Sierra. Sierra, jump in here because I know you got a lot to say.
All the things that they speak about, Rita, are the things that we spend so much time at Network Connect trying to build in our hard-to-reach communities. Terry mentioned being connected. We're called Network Connect because the connection matters, right? And being able to form those connections in the hardest reach communities is sometimes hard because immediately when you ask that question, the first thing I thought about was the stigma. in the Black and brown community, and trying to bust that up. Like, it's okay to not be okay, but it's also okay to reach out for help and talk about what's really going on, be vulnerable, take accountability, and start to be able to make change. I think with some of the work that we do with our community well-being ambassadors is building skills for psychological recovery in those hard to reach neighborhoods. So we're actually teaching people how to cope with all the dimensions of wellness, because like Annie said, we see it as sometimes very flat, but wellness is a circle, it's a dimension, and there are several areas that you have to approach in order to truly be well.
So how do we, Annie, maybe we come back to you on this one, because maybe did we learn how to be not well?
Well, I don't know if we learned, but we've been talking about it, right? People like to point and blame a lot of things on mental health, right? Even just the idea of it, we hear that societally. And I have to shout out to Sierra, because she just named 2 of the components of mental health literacy in her response.
We have to work together.
And we do, I think we just decided. So mental health literacy is 4 things, and it's a framework. So it's not like, oh, I took a class, I know mental health literacy. No, it's like, well, think about literacy is like learning to read and write, right? And you didn't just start doing that as a child and you were reading Catcher in the Rye the next day, right?
Right.
You had to learn it and practice it. So mental health literacy is the same thing.
Oh, so there's a practice involved.
Yeah, there's like an embracing the ideas of it. So it's 4 things. The first one is understanding how to foster and maintain positive mental health, which is kind of what we were all just talking about. And it's often the part people don't talk about, because they think mental health and they jump to mental illness. So we're talking about crises, we're talking about all these tragic things and trauma, all these things that are seriously important, and they're things that we need to address, but we have to look at the whole picture. So that's one piece. The second piece is understanding common disorders and their treatments. Now, that's certainly something that we're talking a little bit about, but I think we spend a lot of time on warning signs and red flags, right? But we need to recognize there's treatments. This is health. This is just like going to the doctor for something else, but it's just something that's been taboo for so long that we've not learned about it. So the third,
you're saying the stigma might have.
Well, yeah, I'm getting there.
Okay.
Yeah, you're teeing me up.
All right.
So the third component is the one you just said, which is understanding how to seek help for yourself or somebody else. So understanding that help seeking is a learned skill. It's not something you just know how to do. You have to understand who to go to. You have to understand trusted adults if you're a young person. You have to understand where your resources are and when and what to say, all those things. And then the 4th piece is what you just said, understanding stigma and decreasing it. We have to teach about it. We have to recognize what it is, call it out, and then we have to talk about how to reduce it, how to address it. And the cool thing is if you understand the other 3 components and you're really working on those things, you're naturally decreasing the stigma just by doing those other 3 things.
Oh.
So not to say you shouldn't also try to, address stigma independently, but that's what's so cool about mental health literacy, and that's why I've just taken this on so passionately, is it's what I didn't know as a parent, as a mom. It's what I didn't know as a teacher, and it's knowledge that my child didn't know either. And unfortunately for our family, it didn't turn out well. And so I want everybody to know it because we all deserve to know it.
And that's why you set this national framework and collaborative.
Well, I didn't create the framework. The framework's actually been around for decades.
Okay.
But we just haven't really learned about it.
And
Think
we
about
haven't
when you learned
promoted
about
it.
health in school.
Right.
Did you ever learn about your mind? Nope. So that's what I'm working on. I'm working on that kind of systematically, making sure that everybody has access to this information.
Well, and we
Love
heard that
that, Amy.
Jessica, is in a bigger framework at the university that's focused on the wellness.
Yeah.
Terry, tell us a little bit. So these are some programs that are from women here in Delaware, but because the need is so great, they've also expanded to the national level. And I know that was the dream of Annie. And also, you're a founder of this Pathways to Resilience. I know our First Lady, Tracy Carney, is heavily involved as well. Tell us more about that, because bad things will happen,
Yes.
right, to people.
I can't go on without telling you a little bit about our mental health literacy work here in Delaware, though.
Big heart,
right.
big
So
heart,
just so you know. So those, in addition to those 4 in Delaware, we are also focusing. We have a 5th competency, and it's social and emotional competence. We believe that mental health literacy begins with understanding your own emotions, recognizing and being able to label them, recognizing that other people have emotions and being able to do some perspective taking, putting yourself in their position so you can understand.
So empathy.
Yes, that's how you develop empathy. So all of those things create a pathway for your resilience and your mental health literacy. And the reason why we've invested in pathways to resilience is because, one, we know that trauma and adversity is prevalent. In Delaware, though, we also include in that definition toxic stress. That toxic stress and that ongoing chronic adversity that people experience, marginalization, historical trauma, those are the things that really change your health trajectory and determine health outcomes. And so with that in mind, Pathways to Resilience is looking at community-based strategies for how do we build, what does it mean to be well, and how do we build a well community? And so that work has really been instrumental in creating a number of programs here in the state, K-12, but also community-based programs where we're using the SAMHSA model and the skills for psychological recovery.
SAMHSA is
the Division of Substance Abuse and Mental Health.
At the federal level.
Yes, but we're using their model that begins with, skills for psychological recovery, youth mental health first aid, all of those as a pathway for building mental health literacy and also helping people recognize that each and every one of us have a responsibility to play in building a healthy community. And so we can be that one person that creates a pathway for others to be resilient.
So Sierra, you want to chime in here too, because I know, so audience, I want you to know all these women, it won't surprise you, are interconnected in a variety of ways.
Delaware is small.
Delaware is small, but also
one
like
degree away from everybody.
But the universe also has a way of bringing excellence together, if you hear what I'm saying. And so Terry was an integral player with the Community Wellbeing Initiative that Sierra runs. Also, Annie was at the University of Delaware, and also there's the connection with the UD. So, you know, women are good at this, as we said. We just have to make sure we're taking care of ourselves along the way, right? Applaud the Surgeon General. I don't know if people heard today that he talked about family stress as a public health issue. And when families are stressed, especially parents, then what impact, you know, is happening with their children. So even though I still see a tremendous stigma in our country, I mean, we pretend like we have mental health parity and we actually don't, even though we have policy on it. So how do we take it to like the next level?
Innovation.
Tell me more about what that is.
I think we have to be creative about the ways that we serve the community. I think the needs of the community change as time changes, right? It's especially with social media. So we deal a lot with younger adults. We say we serve cradle to cane, but a lot of our community members are young adults. And so the mental health avenues that they're approaching are very different than even when I was in school, right? Because we didn't have social media. We didn't have those addictions to the scrolling, excuse me. So the innovation of how we approach mental health has to also grow with the times. And I think some of it is what we do at Network Connect is the boots on the ground, like meeting people where they are, making sure that we're in the communities where they need the help the most, and others have to join in that fight as well. I think also in order for us to really see stigma change, it is about literacy, but it's also about having honest and open conversations in uncomfortable places. So we can all sit at the kitchen table and have a conversation with the people we love, but will you do that at the boardroom? Will you have those conversations with the teachers at the professional developments? We don't know, but how they come to that school building matters to the children that they're teaching.
So how we show up matters.
How we show up matters. And we know with any mental health is just one aspect, but connection happens based on how I feel when Jessica sit next to me, right? So those things trickle out. So if you're having a bad day, Jessica, and I sit next to you, I can feel that. And then as you begin to speak, you change the trajectory of the room depending on how you feel. So when we talk about mental health and creating safe spaces and learning opportunities and building skill, we also have to consider that connection and what it means when I show up in the room, and how are we being innovative about making sure we're providing services that pay attention to all those aspects.
And we can use the science to back it up. We have mirror neurons in our brains. So when you come into the room and you're stressed out, you're sharing that stress with other people. Exactly. So we want us to state the individual to, first of all, be a thermostat, right? Come in and set the temperature for the room, but also share your calm with other people. Absolutely. When you stay regulated, you allow the people around you to stay regulated.
And check in on each other. At Network Connect, we do a thing called a fuel tank check. If Terry shows up to work and I say, where's your tank? I can tell something's going on. Right? I'm at 50%, right? Yeah. You need 120% from the rest of people around you. So if we don't have those open conversations that I mentioned, how will we know where Terry is? Right?
That's excellent. I didn't think, because they do talk about like if your tank is empty, right? Like how do you get it filled back? You can't give to anybody if your tank is empty. So you actually embed that in your daily
in
routines.
Our work. Yes. My whole team is on a self-care week right now. Yes. Everybody who works for, it's 53 of us now, Rita, by the way.
Oh my gosh.
We're statewide.
You are growing. Good golly.
Pray for me, y'all. Yeah. But all of them have a mandated self-care week this week, because we work hard in the summer, and sometimes we're working 12-hour, 13, 14-hour days.
Well, and your students are back in school.
Right. Their children have gone to school. Right. Some of them have started school, and we've done it for 2 years now, where we take a pause, we pour into ourselves, meaning we might do some professional development, but most importantly, they show proof of the ways that they are pouring into themselves in all the dimensions of wellness. So right before they left, we had a professional development where we reviewed the dimensions of wellness, right? So that they can understand the literacy piece of mental health.
So you're almost like, that's like the whole idea of sabbaticals for like and I know you just teamed up with a university too, which is fabulous. But that's the whole idea. Like, how do you get yourself recharged, when you break away, so that you can come back filled again? Mm-hmm. So I love that you've embedded that as part of like the human resources component of the workplace. Jessica, tell us what you're seeing. School just started back. They're back.
Yesterday.
The blue hens are back.
The blue hens are back. Yesterday.
But tell me what, like, kind of you see at that level, once again, young adults, many freshmen for the first time left their safety of the home.
Absolutely.
How are students showing up?
So what we see with students is oftentimes overcommitment, that pressure, that need to be involved with everything.
How many majors now? Like that?
A double, triple, right? Just this.
And perfectionism.
Wow.
High achieving.
Yep.
Absolutely. Being involved or being on the board of 2 or 3 registered student organizations, just really running themselves thin. What we are seeing alcohol-wise across the nation, we're seeing this generation drinking less. Which is fantastic, but there is that use of other substances, which is then increasing, which we heard a little while ago as well. But definitely that overcommitment, that I need to almost prove my worthiness, right? Those are my words.
So self-worth is
and not their words, but that almost like that capitalistic nature, like I am not worthy unless I'm producing. So being able to sit with people, with students, and letting them know that they have value just by existing. Right? Like, you don't have to do all of these things. We can take a pause. I love that you do that for the people that you work with. That's amazing. I wish that was implemented across the board.
Me too.
But maybe it can be.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Right? Like we're all here. Like we can start it. We can take the example.
I'll share.
That's innovation. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And that being said, there are a lot of employers that do give a lot of vacation time. I can't complain at the University of Delaware. they do value wellness across the university. We have great vacation time and sick time and great benefits, and a lot of the access. I heard you talk about access as well, just access to resources, so that way we can remove that stress in getting the help that we need.
So important.
And when we think about, I had the great opportunity for 2 years to teach at Great Oaks Charter. And I do, and
Those are my babies, Rita.
And I was the last class at the end of the day. So many times they were pretty wired. After something might have happened in the class before mine. And it was a UD class that I taught, and they got credit to go to the UD. But for all of you here, what astounded me is they couldn't even tell me how they felt. They could not articulate their feelings. So we would put the feeling faces and words up on the whiteboard, and they would come up and they would circle how they felt, how they thought that they felt. And then I would say, this is a safe place, but if you don't want to talk about it, we don't talk about it. But it amazed me how much time in order for them to actually know what feelings meant. Like, what were they feeling? They could not tell me.
They don't get that question a lot.
They don't get the question a lot, but they also have learned from us to not discuss it. Like when you talk about them, young people being focused on doing instead of being,
that's what
they learn that from us.
Yes.
Right. And so, a part of this work, it's too generational. We have to get better in touch with our own emotions, our own feelings, so that we can support young people in developing those skills and really creating a healthier generation. You said something earlier about community resilience. We often, in our work, talk about whole children. Well, you can't have whole children without thriving families and resilient communities. It all works together. And so until we invest in all of those things at the same time, instead of doing that zero-sum game where if I take something from here, then I can't do something over here. We've got to make consistent investments and measure the impact of what we are investing in.
And partner, because we all can't do it alone. Like each of us on this couch does something really well. And we've worked together a number of times, bringing what we do well to each other. And I think that's important in the state of Delaware, that, like you said, the funding sources are minimal and there's a lot of us, but we have to partner together so that we can approach each area. That's that innovation that we were just talking about, making sure that we are not forgetting the people who are often always forgotten. And then when you talk about those Great Oak students, they are some of the most intelligent, some of the most creative and loving young people that we get a chance to work with. But I don't know if they always are asked questions like you pose to them, Rita. I don't know if they are always thinking about themselves. We're constantly teaching them to do better, reach further, and so they're not often taking that time to pause to be able to say, how do I feel? Right? And are we teaching them the different aspects of feelings? How many feelings can you have, and can you name them?
Right. Yeah. Another thing that you were talking about, the perfectionism and the college students. One thing, I taught school for a long time. For 25 years, I was an English teacher.
What grade?
Mostly 5th and 6th grade.
Oh, those
but
are hard.
I love that grade. Oh my gosh! And I directed musicals, so I'm not sure why I'm here exactly.
That's cool.
But
so you could sing from us.
No, I'm not singing. You don't want me singing. I promise. They would turn everything off. No. So what I was going to say was, one thing that I did a lot with my students is I would say, and I make them repeat, failure is an opportunity.
Yes. Yes.
Failure is an opportunity.
Yes.
Not because I was trying to prepare them to put F's on their paper, but I didn't use red pen. Like I did all these very intentional things to try to deprogram them, because already by 5th and 6th grade, they already knew that they needed to be perfect. That if they missed something, that was what they were worried about, not that did they learn something.
Right.
And that's what we would talk about. And we talked about the difference between learning goals and performance goals. There's a distinction. Performance goals is what your grade is. Learning goals is, did you learn something? Do you know now something you didn't know before? That's what we need to get back to.
Yes.
I kind of want to go back to the classroom now, so maybe I should go do that.
Maybe we should.
I'm sure you're
in a different
fabulous.
classroom.
Yeah, I'm in a different classroom now. Yeah.
But yes, and you're in a broader, but that brings me to, how do we embed it? Because what I just heard you say and what I said in our when we had the opportunity in our individual classes, we were trying to do that, right? You're doing it in the workplace, right? Jessica's trying to do it right at a college level, at a university level. You're doing it all over the place. But how do we capture it? I mean, it would be great if we could, make so many Annies and Sierras and Jessicas and Terrys, but how do we embed it so then it is at that community societal level? What do you think it will take?
What I'm hearing is a shift from transactional to transformative relationships. That it's more human-centered, it's more focused on what is needed for development. I know in our spaces for so long, K-12, we didn't talk a lot about development, child development, if you can believe that. As a school psychologist, I was constantly trying to bring that conversation back in. You can't discuss academics, you can't discuss behavior if you don't at least know what is healthy development.
Right.
But so often we are quickly moving to outcomes. What's the grade? How do you get the check mark?
Well, and Terry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but if you saw deregulation happening in a child, usually what happens is that turns into a discipline issue. And usually we do the worst thing possible is we either expel them or suspend them. We don't deal with what is really going on with the child. Do you know what I mean? That's the way the system has behaved, because we became outcome oriented for grades and
That's why
school
it's time
tests.
for innovation.
It is.
I mean, I hope they invite me back here, but the school system and how we see school in America has to shift. And I think in Delaware we're having that conversation because of Dr. Terry Lawler.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
But Terry, what's your dream for that? Because you've been at DOE, and I almost see that you spin off to get it at different levels to see, because it is interconnected. But what is your dream at the education level?
Wow. Well, look, first of all, I got to tell you, I get excited at the start of every school year. It's a new school year.
Yeah, nice.
But this year I'll be 36. This is my 36th school year in Red Clay.
Wow.
So that's the first thing. So I'm really excited. Really excited about that.
36 is a great age.
It is.
It is.
It is, but I'm way on the other side.
No, you aren't, girlfriend. You're here.
But I think when I think about where we are and what I'd like to see accomplished, because I told people I left, I had been in Red Clay 30 years. And then when I moved to the department, I was clear that I had a list of things that I wanted to get done. I didn't come here to work, I came to get work done. And I said that, and I kept telling people that, because there are some things that need to happen for all of our kids. And so I wanted to make sure we created those systems.
And you had lived experience on the ground.
Lived on the ground, absolutely. But these are 2-generation solutions that are needed, and it needs to take place in every sector. We can't be isolated. We've got to stop working in silos. We have to work together. We need to think about how we wrap supports around kids, because we all thrive when we have what we need. Like that, I mean, that should be a given. So I think I don't even remember the question. How am I going to measure success, or how will I know that we have done what we need to do?
Yeah. If you had the dream, what's the dream?
My dream is, one, that every educator is committed first and foremost to their own reflection and development, because it begins in here. And then you bring your whole heart to the work, you know? And when we have people who are all turned on and wholehearted about their work, they inspire that in other people. Like for me, for kids, school is for learning. I want them turned on to learning. I just want them to get excited. So I used to see these kids with backpacks that were just bigger than them and dragging them along. And I'm like, they look so heavy coming to school. Where's the joy? School should be a joyful place, and learning is joyful. You know, so if we want our test scores to go up, we need exuberant people that when you're reading the book, I feel like I'm in the book. Like I'm hanging on to every word. Like all of that excitement needs to come back to the work. And from there, support families, support school families, invest deeply, but that investment doesn't always have to be money. Sometimes that investment is just showing up.
Time.
And yes, giving the time and showing up for kids and letting them know, look, you are the most important thing in this building. And if you don't feel good about being here, I don't want to be here. Right?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
so that's how I know when the work is getting done well. It feels different.
It feels different. You got the feeling. Yeah. So Jessica, what is your dream?
Well, what you kind of brought up in me as we're talking about kids in school is then the stress that the parents feel, because the parents, and this might not answer your question directly, but as a parent of 2 small kids, they're not that small anymore. They're 8 and 11.
That's still
it's smallish. But the stress that I can feel when I hear from the school that maybe they're not performing, right? Or like, I don't know, meeting standards. My kid once got in trouble in kindergarten because he wasn't sitting in the approved space, right? Like he wasn't sitting crisscross, applesauce.
But what do you think
So
that's empowered.
So he was sitting on his knees. The teacher didn't ask. The teacher just said, you're not allowed to sit like that. And I asked him, I said, well, why were you sitting like that? He said, I couldn't see the board. And it blew my mind, right? Like, well, of course, sit on your knees, see the board, right? Like we have to do that. But the stress that I felt as a parent then to want my kid to conform, it's a lot. It's a lot.
And you know what? And we partner. We need to partner with you so that you can support him in not conforming. Because the world has a lot of people that are conforming.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
We want people who show up as their whole self.
So authentic.
Yes, to enjoy school.
Yeah, that's what I'm like.
He was there to learn joyfully.
Yeah,
right?
That
was his whole
and he
goal.
was taking care of himself.
He was excited.
He
He wanted to see
taking
the board.
care of himself at a young age. Without asking for permission, he was taking care of himself to learn and feel joy. Sierra, what's your dream?
My dream is really connected to community. I want thriving, healthy communities, especially those Black and brown communities that have experienced so much hardship, systematic oppression, and disparities across the globe, because it's not just here in Delaware. I think there are how many nonprofits in the state of Delaware? We all should be circling around to see a product of healthy, thriving communities in all the dimensions of wellness, but also in education and economic development. That's when I feel like we can retire and be happy about the communities that we've built.
Nice. And Annie?
Well, I have to go back to what I'm putting my whole self into, which is mental health literacy. And I think, I got into this work, I left the classroom, got into mental health advocacy more broadly, and then eventually found myself here, all because of my child not having what he needed when he needed it. And I didn't have the information and the confidence to make the right choices. And so I set out to learn what I didn't know. So my goal, my dream, my child now is a parent. And while I don't have a relationship with my child, I'm sad to say, I do have a relationship with my grandchild, who's 2. Thank you. And when she goes
follow
to
her
school,
on Facebook, you can see that beautiful grandchild.
Here's how I'm going to know I can retire, which I'm looking forward to, honestly. I'm tired. Is when that granddaughter of mine goes to school and she learns about her eyes and her heart and her lungs, I want her to learn about her mind. And I want her to have the information and the confidence that if she or her mom ever needs support with their mental health, they're going to know what to do. They're going to do it with confidence and without shame. That's when I can hang it up, right then.
I'm with you there.
Yeah. But we don't want you totally hanging it up. like maybe we can bring like the next generation.
That's important too, Rita.
You're right.
So let's
That's why I'm here, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You have to
Because
train
it
someone
is
else up.
like I think I think we have to, we need intention.
Yeah.
Intention in this space. Because this isn't new, right? So when we look at multi-generational, like, you know, I'm a baby boomer, right? And my parents we never talked about feelings. Children should be seen and not heard, right? And so you were conformed, right? Because that was what the generation, they thought that was resilience, actually.
They did.
Children are resilient. Well, nobody's resilient if they don't have the tools and the support and that wrap around, right? So one more question. So like think it through. If I were to give you a magical wand tonight, what would be the first thing that you would go out and do with it in this space?
I can answer that without thinking.
There you go.
Everyone would have a home to go to and sleep in. The housing crisis, not only in Delaware, but across this nation is ridiculous. The pricing of housing and how many people we serve on a regular basis who we have to tell, I'm sorry, we don't have anything for you, is just out of this world. And if I had a magic wand, that's what I would fix first.
Any other quick ones before we wrap up?
Connection.
Connection.
Right. So
we started with connection.
Yes. We have this device which is supposed to connect us to each other, our phones and social media, but we are lonelier than ever.
Connection. So real authentic.
Real authentic.
Human connection.
Human
connection.
Absolutely.
Yeah, not device connecting.
No.
Human
Real
to human. Human connection. Annie?
I'm just going back to what Terry talked about with joy in the classroom, and I think my magic wand would have something to do with empowering families to feel that joy again so that their children feel the joy and their educators feel the joy, because I think that's going to build a joyous community.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Terry, you have the last word. Well, I probably have the last word, but you have the second to the last word.
So I think to pull all of that together, I think it would be families being connected in joyful communities with other people. Because you
tie it up in a bow.
I
love it.
Because look, if my neighbor's house is on fire, my house is not safe. I need healthy people, whole people around me.
Yes. Well, thank you, ladies on the couch. You did fabulous. We really appreciate you being with us. And thank you. For more information, or if you want to get in contact, remember the Lieutenant Governor, Bethany Hall Long, the Behavioral Health Consortium, and DETV, Every Woman. You heard Ivan. Let's give a shout out to Ivan earlier tonight. He wants to keep these dialogues, these conversations going. So if you have some ideas that, you want to have a conversation, talk to Ivan. We would love you to engage with the Behavioral Health Consortium. A lot of great work going on there. And if you want to think about what we heard tonight, Alexia Wolf is with us. She's the Executive Director of the Behavioral Health Consortium. We can indeed take what we heard and how do we elevate it for the state of Delaware, but also keep the national work going too, right? Because we want to change the world, actually, right? And we want to learn from others, right? I want to thank all the women, and David's with us. I love when the men show up, right? I love when the humans show up. This is the human connection. So, and Ivan toasted the women. And David's here to participate with the women. So we love when the men show up with us. So thank you all.